Hello everyone! In our last episode, we saw the brutal behavior of Nobunaga unveiled upon the Iko-Iki warrior monks that constantly undermined him for too long. Also, the conquering of Azai and Asakura clans in the north, and the Takeda invasion on Tokugawa territory ending with the death of the mighty Takeda Shingen. In this episode, we will see leaders trying to take advantage after the recent events in the east, west, but also in the south. Until 1575, powers of the west and south managed to finally consolidate, with Shimazu regaining control of all three of its original provinces, Satsuma, Osumi and Hyuga, while Chosokabe took control of the entire Tosa province by deleting from the map both of its rivals, Motoyama and Ichiyo. Meanwhile, in the east, Takeda Katsuyori planned the continuation of his father's ambitions to attack the Oda clan. But again, Ieyasu Tokugawa was in the way of his objectives. So, he had to deal with him first. Initially, Katsuyori attacked Okazaki and Yoshida castles, but failed to take them, so he changed his strategy and marched back east to take the Nagashino castle. To the surprise of everyone, the small and brave defending army of just 500 soldiers deflected all the ferocious attacks of the 13,000 strong Takeda army. 4 entire days Takeda struck continuously to no avail. In the 5th day, they managed though to destroy the castle's storehouse. Now they entrenched around the castle to wait the starvation of the defending army, even if Katsuyori tried to avoid this because it could take even months before the defenders would surrender. A brave Tokugawa samurai named Tori Sunemon decided to take on a dangerous mission. He sneaked out of the castle and managed to pass through all the Takeda siege lines. After that, he lighted up a beacon to signal the defenders that he made it alive. He then ran with haste to Okazaki to inform Ieyasu of the siege. By the time he got there, Oda Nobunaga also arrived with an enormous force of 30,000 soldiers, double the size of Takeda's army. Now, both armies of Nobunaga and Ieyasu started the march to Nagashino. Meanwhile, Tori Sunemon rushed back too. He planned to infiltrate back into the castle to tell the defenders that the reinforcements are coming. He did not have the same luck as the first time though, and he was caught by Takeda forces when trying to sneak back into the castle. Hearing his story, Katsuyori was impressed. He offered him a deal. If he was to lie to the defenders that no help is coming, he will receive a position in Takeda's army. Tori Sunemon accepted the deal in order to get in front of the castle. But instead of yelling what he was told, he yelled that reinforcements are coming. For this, Katsuyori crucified him in front of the castle. On that moment, the eldest of the Takeda generals tried to convince Katsuyori to retreat since they could not stand a chance in front of Tokugawa Oda combined forces. There were also few younger Takeda generals that tried to convince him the opposite, considering that they are not cowards to retreat and that Takeda have a long history of not losing wars. Katsuyori was convinced to stay and fight. He also refused to try another all-in assault at Nagashino Fortress, ignoring the elder generals saying that they need to face the Oda and Tokugawa in the open field, where the Takeda cavalry would shine and not behind the walls. Knowing that this is suicidal, all the elder generals gathered to share a last cup of sake before the battle. Katsuyori deployed all his army on the battlefield, except 3,000 soldiers that he left back to maintain the siege on Nagashino Fortress. Nobunaga, on the other hand, knew that the cavalry is the strongest Takeda threat, so his army was equipped with mass firearms, the biggest concentration of firearms in Japan ever seen before that day. He arranged his gunners on 3 lines to cover each other while reloading, and each line brought with them timber and built wooden palisades to protect them against the cavalry attacks. Ieyasu also sent 3,000 men to encircle the battlefield and to reach the Nagashino fortress and wait for the battle to start, then to attack the sieging fortress. The Battle of Nagashino began.
It is June 1575, and Nagashino Castle in Mikawa province is under attack. After an incursion deep into Tokugawa territory failed, Takeda Katsuyori led his army back into the mountains and now besieges the fortress at Nagashino. He can count among his forces the fearsome Takeda cavalry, known to be the finest in Japan. The young Takeda warlord is keen to be successful in his attack on Nagashino after the failure of his raid so far. However, word has now reached Tokugawa Ieyasu that his castle is under attack. The Tokugawa are not without powerful friends. Oda Nobunaga, the foremost warlord in central Japan, has brought his army to relieve the siege. Among his army are his many matchlock gunners. Nobunaga means to deploy these gunners behind wooden palisades alongside regular infantry, all to protect them from the Takeda cavalry.
Katsuyori ordered frontal heavy cavalry charges, but the waves of riders were simply shred by the continuously rain of bullets. The few horsemen that managed to pass the gunners were cut into pieces by the samurai and Ashigaru spears waiting behind the 3 lines of gunners. In the meanwhile, the 3,000 Tokugawa forces near the castle attacked the siege forces. Seeing the reinforcements fighting, the defending forces inside the fortress opened the gates and joined the fight. Takeda were crushed on both sides. Katsuyori retreated with his little forces remaining and never planned an invasion again. Now, Oda could finally focus back on the west side. Even if he managed to deal with the Ikuiki threat, they still had their impenetrable fortress of Ichiyama Konganji standing, thing that Nobunaga didn't like at all. In 1576, he again sieged the fortress temple, but with no success. This time though, he was more confident. He surrounded the temple fortress both on land and on sea, blockading the port and hoping that the impenetrable fortress will finally fall eventually due to the lack of supplies. This is the moment when Mori finally decided to enter the war. The actual daimyo, Mori Terumoto, gathered his impressive fleet and attacked Oda, helping the Ikuiki at Ichiyama Konganji. The fortress will not fall anytime soon. One year later, in the east, with both Takeda Shingen and a line of the Sagami dead, the balance in the region was broken. So Kenshin decided to expand, not worrying that he can be attacked by two rivals anytime soon. So he marched west, conquering Echu and Noto with ease, getting closer than ever to Oda territory. Oda feared Kenshin, since by 1576 he was already considered a legend in all the north and east of Japan. So he decided to act, sending north his entire army of 50,000 soldiers. Kenshin gathered his 30,000 soldiers at Matsuo Castle in Kaga province near the Tedorigawa river and set them in defensive position. Oda army had once again mass firearms and this time included even few cannons to show its supremacy at range. Kenshin's strategic mind surprised everybody once again though. He split his army in two, ordering half of it to march back away from the castle. Nobunaga took the bait and ordered a full attack, thinking that this is a great opportunity to attack while Uesugi forces were divided. When a big portion of his army was crossing the water, Kenshin ordered his men to break the floodgates, releasing massive waves that swallowed whole portions of the Oda army alive. The few that managed to cross the river were immediately butchered by the Uesugi samurai waiting for the occasion. Nobunaga lost his nerve and ordered a full retreat, fearing that the Uesugi will continue its momentum and crush the remaining forces and even march on Kyoto. He went in a great state of shock after losing his entire northern army. Kenshin, though, did not continue to march on Kyoto. Even if he realized that it was an achievable dream, he did not desire it. He chose to march back to Noto province and solidify his newly conquered territories. The great victory at Tedorigawa River would be also his last big victory. 1 year later, in 1578, he will pass away, most probably to his alcoholic tendencies. Before dying, Kenshin wrote a poem. Even a lifelong prosperity is but one cup of sake. A life of 49 years is passed in a dream. I know not what life is, nor death. Year in year out all but a dream. Both heaven and hell are left behind. I stand in the moonlight dawn, free from the clouds of attachment. His death leaves many speculations, many considering that Kenshin could very likely succeed in taking Kyoto if he continued his march or if he started his campaign sooner, becoming the first great unifier of Japan. Instead, this battle was a reminder for Nobunaga that he is not invincible. Also, Nobunaga was once again surrounded by three threats: Uesugi, Ikoiki, and Mori. While Uesugi were more passive than aggressive and Ikoiki were small, Mori was a different story. The problem with Mori was that it was not just a big clan comparable in force with Oda, but it also had many smaller clans as allies. Kono, Ukita, Yamana, Ishiki, Akamatsu, and Hatano were all allied with Mori. Nobunaga planned the invasion of the west with a double campaign, one in the south side and one in the north side. He planned to leave this to his most trusted generals. Hideyoshi was in charge with the south side campaign and Mitsuhide with the north side campaign. While Mitsuhide was struggling, Hideyoshi was thriving, making slow but clear progress. Hideyoshi was master at taking castles, managed to take the Hineyama castle, that will later be known as the famous Himeji castle, by diplomacy, then pressed the march forward to Kozuki castle. This time he seized it by force, defending army refusing to surrender. Mitsuhide surrounded the Yakami castle but could not take it by force. Instead, he proposed the Hatano daimyo a bargain. Mitsuhide gave his own mother as hostage and the promise of safe passage and protection in exchange for the castle. Hatano leader accepted and surrendered the castle. Then he was sent to Azuki castle. By 1579, Mitsuhide also succeeded in conquering the Ishiki clan, but word arrived from Azuki that Hatano daimyo was executed at the order of Nobunaga. The news also arrived at the former Hatano soldiers that were still loyal to their daimyo, so they immediately executed Mitsuhide's mother for the betrayal. This crippled the relations between Nobunaga and Mitsuhide. Meanwhile, by 1580, Hideyoshi manages to annex the entire Harima province, and also, after 10 years of siege, the mighty Ishiyama Honganji Ikoiki temple fortress finally fall to Nobunaga, ending the longest siege in the history of Japan. In 1578, the Shimazu clan conquered Higo and grew even more as a threat on Kyushu Island. Otomo clan, that was a major player, could not let Shimazu expand like that at its doors. Otomo daimyo, Otomo Sorin, was a competent leader and one of the few daimyo that embraced the Christianity. Considering the circumstances, Otomo Sorin could not wait for Shimazu to attack first, so he decided to invade it. Otomo sieged the castle of Taka, but even if Shimazu forces were smaller, they managed to resist until reinforcements came, and they attacked the Otomo forces from two sides, inflicting panic. Losing this battle weakened the Otomo clan. Meanwhile, in 1579, Chosokabe knew that the Kono clan could not receive proper reinforcements from their Mori allies, since Mori just entered the war with Oda. Thus, he saw the opportunity and attacked the Kono clan. In 1580, he sent a force of 30,000 soldiers to invade and seized the entire province without effort. Since now he conquered the ally of Mori, Chosokabe Motochika knew that he must find support in Nobunaga, who accepted the request to ally with him. Even though Nobunaga cared little for Motochika, and he was planning one day to conquer its territory for himself. Back in the east, the death of Kenshin weakened the clan. That entered a civil war between two of his adopted sons, each of them claiming the leadership of Uesugi, and each of them being backed, one by Takeda and one by the Hojo. Seeing this opportunity, Nobunaga pressed advance north and quickly captured Kaga and Noto provinces in 5080. By 5082, Echu province will also fall into Oda's hands. In the same year, Kozuke province will also be eaten by Takeda and Hojo, who viciously fight for it. Uesugi will survive, but their days as a major player in the region died. By 1580, Oda seized control already over Harima, Tamba, Tango, and Tajima through conquest, but also over Bizen by diplomacy. When the Ukita clan leader realized that Oda can't be stopped, so he switched sides. The next move of Hideyoshi was to move his power base of operations to Himeji Castle to be closer to the conflict and to control better the invasion. The next target was the Yamana capital of Totori. Before the siege started, Yamana leader took his few troops and ran from the battle, letting the Mori reinforcements to fight alone. Hideyoshi built watchtowers all around the castle to ensure that nobody gets in or out the Totori castle, planning to starve the Mori defenders to death. For 200 days the siege lasted. In time the Mori troops even resorted to cannibalism to stay alive. In 5081, the leader of Mori defenders, Tsunehie, surrendered in order to save what was left of his troops, sealing his own fate with seppuku. Now, with Totori castle captured, the entire province was under Oda control. Hideyoshi shifted his attention to Bichu. Everything for Oda was running smoothly. He was winning the war in the west, while in the east, Takeda and Uesugi were both crippled. From his impressive castle of Azuki, Nobunaga was controlling his vast territory and planning his invasions. On the other hand, his brutality was growing day after day, and also his fear of betrayal, seeing enemies everywhere, even in the most trusted of his generals. Nobunaga started to be paranoid, especially after the incident in 1579 when Ieyasu's wife changed letters with Takeda Katsuyori in order to betray both Tokugawa and Oda clans. Nobunaga immediately demanded Ieyasu to take measures, and Ieyasu was forced to order the execution of his wife and also ordering his own son to commit seppuku. To avoid the conflict that his son could start in his desire to revenge his mother. Ieyasu knew that his son is innocent, but chose to follow Nobunaga's orders. Many consider that Nobunaga knew also that Ieyasu's son was innocent, but he wanted to see if Ieyasu himself is still loyal. On the surface, Tokugawa Ieyasu proved he is still loyal, but this incident had put a deep strain on their relationship. In 5082, Nobunaga and Ieyasu gathered together a huge force of 100,000 soldiers to march on Takeda to eradicate the Takeda clan once and for all. The Takeda was still weakened after the lost battle of Nagashino, but Katsuyori refused to run and hide. He decided to make a last stand. Oda Tokugawa army crushed the Takeda, and while the fight was still going on, Katsuyori committed suicide alongside with his wife and children. And that's how one of the greatest clans ever ruled in Japan was deleted from the map. Suruga province was given to Tokugawa, while the rest of the provinces fell under the influence of Oda. With one exception though, the small but brave Sanada clan, who pledged its alliance to Oda, and as a result he was allowed to keep its territory. Nobunaga finally settled the business in the east. He was now preparing to move his army to the west to join Hideyoshi and finish the Mori problem. Once the preparations were made, he left the Azuki castle and stopped on 21 of June in Kyoto at Honnoji Temple to spend the night before continuing the march west. During the night, Nobunaga heard powerful noise outside. When he got out to see what is happening, he realized that he is under attack. Akechi Mitsuhide turned his 13,000 soldiers all the way back to Kyoto to execute his plan of betrayal. Nobunaga was caught off guard. He only had with him his personal guards, and even though they fought viciously with even Nobunaga himself taking a bow and killing a couple of Mitsuhide's soldiers, it was not enough. Nobunaga realized that, and he went inside the temple and committed seppuku. His death left behind a legend, the legend of the first true unifier of Japan. He is remembered as a visionary. He completely restructured and enriched the economy, creating a system that worked better for all and not for the few. He implemented vast improvements to the infrastructure, building extensive roads and bridges. While we all remember him for being the first unifier of Japan, he was so much more than that. Mitsuhide did not stop there, and he also raided the second location in Kyoto where Nobunaga's son resided, and killed him also. Ieyasu was also in Kyoto with his small personal guards, but he managed to escape from Mitsuhide's anger, helped by his loyal Hattori Hanzo and his network of shinobi that granted him safe passage to Mikawa province. In the next episode, we will see the aftermath of Mitsuhide's betrayal. Thanks for watching and hope you enjoyed. See you in the next episode.